Hello, everyone. It's me. It's Pat. It's DM Pat or Storyweaver. However you want to look at me, if you want to look at me. But I'm here. Those of you who are listening on the podcast, you can't look at me, but that's okay because I got somebody here to replace my beautiful looks with a beautiful voice. And for you YouTubers, you get to see his beautiful face. Welcome back, Brimvor. It's been so long, man.
Yeah, I'm not sure how far flattery's gonna get you with that one, but thanks for the compliments.
Hopefully it gets me a little bit farther, but at the same time, we miss you, man. I mean, I know a lot of the viewers miss Oscar, and I know we talked about wrapping Oscar's story up in some way, so for the viewers, get ready for that. But yeah, no, everyone misses you. Everyone misses you.
I know, I wish scheduling wasn't an issue, but
Yeah.
I appreciate everybody who enjoyed Oscar.
He's a good character. He really pulled that kind of vibe into the story. Really kind of helped carry the darkness in, and thankfully Yone came in and with Zoe and filled the spot of the creepy horror, but not the same way.
Well, Yone is our resident edgelord / tentacle fanboy.
Yes, he is. We are. I know this is the video is what we're doing, but maybe we should do a different thing. But you know what? We're getting off topic here. We haven't even gotten on the topic. We're here to talk about problem players. Problem players is what we're here to talk about. We'll do a critical conversation later about your absence and the reasons. But no, I'm just kidding. How dare you be absent?
Yeah.
So, we're here to talk about problem players and why it greatly matters how you deal with them and how you identify them and identify the problem. And I know no one better than Brim when it comes to people who have dealt with their fair share of problem players, much like myself. So, yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure occasionally I was a problem player in some of his games, but I know I've interacted with some of the problem players that were in his games. But we're gonna find out more about those things as we go through the questions. So, what do you think is the main reason why we should deal with problem players, Brimvor?
Well, honestly, it ends campaigns. Like, the whole thing about D&D is that it's like you want to get together, you want to play together. But honestly, like, scheduling supposedly the big BBG of D&D as a whole. Problem players are their minions.
That's a good way to put that.
They help contribute to destroying campaigns and making D&D not play.
They're the more effective Team Rocket.
Yes.
No matter how many times you get rid of them, they just keep coming back.
Because they're essentially a double agent, but not that they're trying to be. They're just that's how it ends up being. But yeah.
I mean, if you get a problem player who's trying to be a problem player, that's a problem. That means that that's not just on your. That's not just a person. That's on your game or possibly a personal attack. So keep an eye out for if they just start doing it on purpose, because that's a big red flag.
Which, yeah, you probably have some people that will do that just because they're like, you pissed them off. You said no one too many times in their mind, and they're just like, I gotta like get back at this DM, man. Or
I gotta win D&D
to this player. Which actually we did have during one of my campaigns, like clash between multiple players actually. That.
I remember that game. I think I ended up stepping out of that game because of some of those issues. So
yeah, that was a rough one. I ended up just closing it and being like, I'm done with all y'all, and
sucks because I loved that game. I love that
Yeah,
character too.
it was a good concept and it was a fun game, but
So, moral of the story: if you're gonna play certain games, even your regular players can occasionally become problem players. It just,
that is true,
yeah,
and that makes it
yeah,
harder to deal with them. Sorry,
yeah.
didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, you didn't cut me off. You talk freely, man. I don't care. The viewers are listening to this just as well, just as much as we are. So, um, but yeah, no, like yeah. Moral of the story is even your consistent same players can become problem players, depending on who's in it, the vibe of the story, what's going on in their life. So sometimes it's more important to bring it up to them to solve the problem or potentially help them to understand that they're making the game not as fun for everyone else. But we're going to get into some of these problem players and talk about them. So now that the intro of our little discussion has come to an end, let's move to the first segment, which is the disruptor. So the disruptor, the question here that we've been asked by a few people when we were talking about making this video, and I'm sorry it took so long to make it. Storytellers Tales is filled with people with ADHD. How do you handle a player who consistently derails the game or breaks immersion? Like, and I mean not like breaks immersion, like laughs about a situation and then talks about it, you know, when something funny happens. I mean like they are consistently possibly bringing in like real world things or trying to in a way I don't know, like me personally, I haven't had too many people try to derail my games. Breaking immersion is one thing that has happened, but I want to hear from you first, Brim. What do you, I know you've experienced both these things.
No, actually, I don't want to point at personal experience on this one because, like, I actually have been watching a lot of Legends of Adventures lately, and I think their whole stick is that they actually have a table full of disruptors. Like, they're all trying to get everybody to laugh, and that's their whole shtick. And like, it's awesome. They're doing a wonderful job. But imagine taking one of those players that loves causing disruptions and putting them in like a serious campaign, like where like people aren't trying to be like slapstick and like it. I'm not saying they personally would do this. I'm just saying like imagine having someone like that in a serious campaign and like
Oh yeah.
you wouldn't be able, it would be a nightmare. Like you're trying to like give this rallying speech to the troops and all of a sudden Johnny over here is like being like I don't know,
Coming up with those concepts is hard, but that's mostly just because we ourselves haven't really run into this problem. But if somebody is attempting to derail your game, even if it's like, we'll backpedal a little bit. If somebody is trying to derail the game itself, or is inadvertently derailing the game, the best situations you can do to handle this is to talk to them. Make sure they understand. You should have made this clear in session 0. But sometimes some people aren't listening. Some people are, they think that they understand, but they don't. So the best thing you can possibly do is just kind of pull them aside privately and be like, hey, this isn't really the vibe of the story. You know, are you comfortable playing more seriously? And if they're like, oh, that's not really my style, oh, I was just trying to have fun, you're like, yeah, you can have fun, but keep it to where it doesn't like isn't consistently, like constantly, like hey, have fun in ways that are more open for the party to enjoy the story as well, because some people are more there for the story and for playing with friends and exploring the story or making a story, right? And then some are there to have fun in a more jokey way, and there are different types of campaigns for these kinds of people. I know I run games that have some humor to it, but most of the time they're dark fantasy serious games. So slapstick doesn't really fit into my world too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I actually think what you were talking about earlier was a better example of this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, when you bring up slapstick.
Oh,
Like,
yep. um, but yeah, so moral of the story here, if they're derailing the game or they're breaking immersion, pull them aside and find out why, and kind of find a common ground between it, because you don't want to get rid of their humor, their way of having fun, but at the same time, if it's a game that they're constantly causing moments of the story breaking, or people are losing interest because of the situation, then that needs to be addressed, and it's something that needs to be addressed with the player themselves. That's how at least I would handle it. I would talk to them privately about it and explain the situation.
yeah, I mean that's pretty much the best you can do.
Yeah.
And then don't gossip about it later with the other players. Just like
Yep.
after you talk about it, it's done. Just be like, if you need to vent with someone outside of the game.
Yeah.
Like,
Not a friend of a friend
and,
either.
yeah, and make sure that's confidential.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Um.
but
Yeah. I mean, it's, and you know, if it's not a story they're if it's just not a story they're not having fun and they're trying to make their own story, because this is another thing that comes up in the situation where the story you're telling or the story your party is creating isn't a story that this person wants to have their character be in, or it's not the story they want for their character. And these are most of the time valid problems. Like if somebody built a character and brought it in, and then they're like, oh, this isn't a game that, you know, this isn't a story that I want my character to experience. Well, either talk to them about bringing a new character in, or no D&D is better than bad D&D. So if the person who's derailing the game is not having fun, maybe the story isn't for them.
I kind of want to touch on this real fast because
Yeah,
this
go for it.
happened in one of our games. Because I brought in Grat. I don't know if you remember Grat.
I do. Yeah, he's
Um,
from one of our first editions of Grand Quest before we were able to solidify the world. So,
anyways, Grat was a more like noble knight, and
mhm.
at the time the party was very much not that. And
Yes.
he was trying to stand up for the the right things and all that stuff, and it was just interfering with the party like so much. Like it was, I was just like, you know what? Can you just kill Grat, because this isn't like, I'm not gonna change his character,
Mhm.
like retcon him to make him fit into this. And yeah, Pat worked with me on that. Like the best thing you can do is just be open with your DM and like
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
hey, I want to go in this new direction. Like try to think some things out before you bring them up in conversation. And if you're having a hard time, like, yeah, you can ask for help. But yeah.
So, we stumbled into in that discussion. We both covered segment one and segment two. No, sorry, segment one and segment three, which we covered the disruptor and the tone breaker. So, bottom line of those two segments, they're both very similar players. They could be seen in different ways, but segment three's was how should I approach a player when their humor or lack thereof disrupts the intended tone, especially of themed stories or games such as horror or dramatic campaigns. So we covered that for the most part. Basically, if it's a person who's derailing the game because they're doing it out of spite or anger or dislike of the story, maybe it's time to remove them from the game. Maybe if they're not willing to work with you and stop doing it, then yeah, be the protector of your game and have them leave. Understand that the longer you try to, if they're not willing to work with you the first or second time, don't give them a third chance because this is dwindling the fun your other players are having. Note that if they're a friend of somebody in the group, this might cause a little bit of ground shaking, but as long as you're open with your party, as long as you're open with your friends, things will work out in the end for the most part. But if it's something like the player just isn't fitting in the style or tone of the game, if you can find common ground between them and the party and the story, that's amazing. Work for that. But if you can't, and it's just not something that they're having fun in, and they're trying to make it to where they're having fun in it, but it's ruining the vibe of the story and the fun for the other players who are trying to play that kind of theme, maybe help them find a game that does fit them. Or help them find a character that fits it. Something like that.
I actually think this is a great segue into the group divide. Because we're talking about, like, players that are maybe friends of other players, and, like, maybe you have friends of a problem player. And so, divide. Do you want to go into it?
Yeah, we're ADHD here, so we'll come back to segment 2 in a moment. But these three kind of, I positioned these so wrong. I should have positioned these together because they very much flow into each problem. But so we're gonna move to segment 4 and go back to segment 2. But the group divide. How do you handle situations where some players are fine with the disruptive behavior, but others clearly are upset? So pretty much the question here is, what's your approach to mediate the group's dynamic and restoring the trust and balance in it? What's your kind of take on this, Brim?
Well, I mean, you have, like, people that... This actually happened during that game, where it's like certain people had problems with I'll just use your characters, Pat, because
go for
some
it.
reason
Use
everybody
Umbra.
hated your character. So Umbra, like, would do clearly villainous things, and I think people didn't understand. Like, I tried to be very clear. Like, this was a villain game. Like, you were going to be evil people or villainous people. Which we did have some philosophical discussions about what constitutes evil and what constitutes villainous, when we were trying to flesh out characters and stuff like that. Which, I mean, yeah. So maybe that's, like, on my part, my bad for not clearly defining the tone. But, like, nobody wanted to be, like, evil. Everybody wanted to be, like,
kind of like anti-heroes in a way. They wanted to do bad things, but they didn't want to do bad things, They wanted to do selfish things. They wanted to be chaotic neutral, not anywhere in the evil spectrum.
I wouldn't even say chaotic neutral. They wanted to be, like, good, but with, like, chaotic. They wanted to be
chaotic good
because, like, they every time, like, there'd be, like, repercussions to, like, somebody, like, people would be like, oh, I don't want to do that. And it's like, I think what was happening is people were letting their own moral compasses
you gotta shut that stuff off. You gotta shut it off, like when you play an evil run of Fallout or something like that, Baldur's Gate.
Which I have problems playing evil run of Baldur's Gate, and that's why the one achievement I don't have is literally I'm one achievement away from platinum yet. But the one achievement I don't have is the final dirge, like, because I messed up during my honor run playthrough where I was playing the dirge, and I didn't kill Ornn.
Hi everyone, welcome to the ADHD podcast where we're talking about random shit.
Anyways, alright, sorry. Anyways, okay, so Pat's character, Pat was actually doing the stuff that I thought characters would do, like robbing people, accusing people of false crimes,
Pretending
like,
to be
things
other
like
people
that.
by stealing their identity and killing them because I was a changeling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
people had really big problems with that.
Oh yeah.
And the thing is like, numbers is hard enough. Like, whenever I'm trying to fill a game, it's like I always get like the same people because
Yep, the
nobody
consistent
else is
players
wanting
like
to.
before.
Yeah,
Yep.
and but some of those players, we won't name names because we're not like that here. Anyways,
Nope.
some of those players took issue with Pat's character's actions
Yep.
and didn't like his personality,
Nope.
and honestly, it was I didn't want Pat to leave because Pat was like, I want Pat to be able to play.
Ah, yes, because I'm the forever DM.
But I also didn't want other people to leave and get upset. So I was like dealing with that, like, I don't know what to do, like, type deal. And Pat just ended up getting fed up with it and kind of like changed the character and kind of also stepped down at the same time.
I changed
Like,
the character because I thought that. See, that's the thing, is this just goes to show how hard it is to, even with people that you play a lot with, to maintain balance. Because it's more the point of when you try something new, not everyone is going to be accustomed to that, which is kind of what, going over to the tone breaker and the first one, the disruptor. In that situation, I was following the tone of the story, but to the other player's way of wanting to play the game, I was being the disruptor. And
yeah,
Brim here was trying to mediate the whole situation, and it just got to the point where I realized, hey, I was kind of being the disruptor, and pretty much my thought was, if I change my character to fit theirs, maybe I will stop being the disruptor. And this is not something that a player should always do. Sometimes it does solve the problem, but it doesn't solve it enough. And so what I
yeah.
should have done was worked with Brim more closely and given him some help on, maybe we should have had like a resession 0 or something like that, like a session 0, like stop the game, do a session 0 to clearly define things and go forward from there. But I ended up
Should have
just
had,
dropping out.
honestly, I should have had a power or the recession 0 with the entire group, like, because obviously which we had this conversation, but it wasn't deep enough
Yep.
where people were being like, I don't really want to be evil and stuff like that, and which we had run something similar to this campaign in a one shot, and people loved that. So I was like not understanding. I think what I wasn't understanding was that people didn't want to deal with the long-term consequences of their evil actions.
One
In a
shots
one
are
shot,
fine. Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
have to deal with that.
No.
And so, but personalities ended up clashing. It party actually like ended up separating in like two parts, and I just didn't know how to deal with it, so I just
Yeah.
turned what was supposed to be a midpoint battle into a final battle, and just was like, guess what, campaign's over.
Yeah.
And uh and I just gave him like told them like, you guys eventually through strategic means, figure out the whole thing that you were having a problem with and deal with it, because I can't deal with your shit anymore. I didn't say that.
No, but pretty much that's how it is. It's where it just got so complicated. And this is what happens when you have to mediate between friends who like the disruptive, because two of the people in the game were okay with my behavior, but the rest just weren't. And one wasn't there enough to really see the issues. And so we kind of just, it was like a divide upon what are we doing. So go ahead.
Honestly, it was one character versus two characters, because the one character didn't like the way the two characters were acting, and the two characters didn't like the way you were acting, and they didn't like the way... They had less problems with the opposing player, but because they started clashing, it started turning into like bigger arguments.
It turned into a Mexican standoff. You know,
Yeah.
It was the Spider-Mans pointing at each other, but with guns. And so it just got real messy. But the thing is, the way that I would have handled this situation, and which I'm sure at this point Brim would have probably going back to tell past Brim how to handle it, would be stop game going forward, have a resession 0, and talk about this. If some of the players are just not okay with the vibe or tone of the story, and they're just like, no, I don't want to play with this character, then you discuss it from there. Maybe the game ends, maybe some of the players leave. But redefining the story, redefining characters, redefining players' interest is going to be a major helping tool into solving a lot of these problems. If it comes down to a point where, like, because there's a lot of different colors to this problem, right? Like, we're just talking about one or two, but maybe you make a decision where you're talking to a problem player about their behavior, and then they go to some of their friends who are also in the game who don't find their behavior bad, and they're like, hey, if he ends up leaving, we're leaving too. We don't find what he's doing an issue. The point of it is it okay for your story? Are you able to pivot your story? Like I said, find common ground to solve these problems. If you're able to pivot your story to be a little bit more in the alignment of how, the majority of the party wants to play, that's fine. But don't forget that sometimes you have to make the hard choices. One above the many is not a better choice. So you got to be very, very careful with your decisions. You gotta kind of analyze it from all angles. If I isolate this character, will they leave? So yeah, it's a really complicated thing. My best point of things is to talk to your players. Talk to the disruptive player privately, but if things escalate to the point where it's just now kind of a whole party problem, there's a massive party divide because of something that has happened or something that is going on, have a resession 0. Don't need to start the game over, but just have a resession 0.
Also, meditate on the problem and be objective when you're doing it. Like, if you're the DM, if you're the player, just word of advice: just don't take things personally. Like, if you don't take actions a player makes personally. Just yeah. But I also want to talk more on this a little bit later. But even like, unless the player is clearly disrupting the game, like if they're doing like little actions that are like not like you just don't agree with morally, that's fine. It's not the person across from the table isn't saying they condone those actions. They're saying, in this fantasy world we've created with this fantasy person I'm playing, I want to. This is the story I want to tell, and that's fine. Like, just don't take it personally. Your character can take it personally, but don't let it drag into your personal life. Like, make that separation clear. Be like, that's person sitting across the table from me. That's not their character.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, going back to the DMs because I have ADHD, whatever.
No. You're looking at this both from the player's perspective and the DM's perspective. So you're doing great.
Back to the DM. When you reach that Mexican standoff, where like you don't know what to do to like, there's two parties forming or whatever. Like you have like groups of people taking sides. Just be objective and like take your emotion out of it. Yes, no one wants to say sorry, I gotta kick you. But also be like in that situation, I should have looked at it objectively. I'm like, this is a game I want to run. These people want to run the game I want to run. These people don't want to run the game I want to run. And what I couldn't do at the time, because I was worried about offending people, was be like, all right, I want to run this game. You clearly have a problem with that. I'm like, if you're willing to change your playstyle, we can talk, but if you're not, I think we should go our separate ways. Not like on a personal, like.
Yeah, don't say get out of my house. No, it's like we should. This isn't the game you're going to enjoy. No D&D is better than bad D&D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just be objective and be decisive. That's what I didn't do. So just learn from my mistakes.
Yeah. See, from a player's perspective, I was the character that, was kind of, I guess, the focal point of the rift, right? And so, but this isn't the first time that this has kind of happened to me. This is why I kind of just left the game. I tend to have a problem where if negative things happen, I leave before I'm kicked. And mainly due to another situation that happened to the same thing, which I recommend as a player. What happened with Brim's game, I shouldn't have left because I wasn't actually in the negative place whatsoever, right? Be observant of where you actually stand. Because if it is somebody else's opinion of you that you're the problem player versus you actually being the problem player, like if you're actually being the problem player and you can see that, you can work to maybe change it, or maybe you just like, okay, I see where I'm being the problem, I'll step away. If you can't change some behavior. But in Brim's game, and then in this other one, I know I wasn't being the problem. In the form, and the one that I was just now bringing up is, I was playing a character with two other people, and we were having fun with this DM, and this is not tied to any of the people who are on the server currently, or in the channel currently. This is before, but my character was kind of the dumb character. He played dumb, he did dumb things, but we were playing a more jokey game. And then the DM had brought two of their friends in, and their friends did not like my character at all. Like, at all. Didn't like my character. At least that's what I thought it was. But so I was like, hey, DM, I know these two, I know I've been playing this character for a little bit, but I think I'm going to switch it up because these two players don't seem to really like my character, and I want everyone to have fun. So I switched my character up, and these two players still found issue with it. I ended up changing character 3 times before the DM just confronted me saying that I was the problem. Where The other two prior had no issue with me. They actually thought that the other two were being the issue. But the DM bringing in two of their friends sided with their friends and not the majority of the group and kicked me instead. So it's that situation of, as a player, you gotta have to make sure that you understand where you were the problem and where you weren't the problem. And if you're not the problem, but you're still being kicked, it's probably not a game you want to be in anyways. You know what I mean? If you're being kicked because two players just don't like you as a person, even though you're not really doing anything, in fact, then don't be in that game. You can play with those other two players in another time, but don't be in that game. Because that game's toxic. That's where it's a different side of the disruptor and their group divide. So, yeah, you got to be careful and kind of just be watching. But also, as a DM, like Brim said, don't be biased. Look at it from an objective point of view and solve the situation the best you can. And understand that you may have to make some hard decisions. So.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's the best we can answer those ones. Sorry for getting off track so hard. Let's go to the hidden power creep. This one I have experienced heavily. So what do you do when a player keeps adding abilities, proficiencies, traits, and backstory and twists to their backstories, and adding items that weren't agreed on or earned in game?
So I'm just going to say this right off the bat.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah, say no.
Say no. Boo-hoo, who cares? No, I'm joking. But, no, like, if they want to, like, adjust their backstory, that's fine, but it shouldn't, like, I guess it should be more like, don't be afraid to say no.
A good way to kind of point this out is Critical Role had a similar situation. Didn't they, back in like Vox Machina age with that problem player? He kept adding things to his backstory.
I think though him more referencing that like he was getting hard in the middle of campaigns and stuff like that.
I'm sure that was a major issue. That was the disruptor. That's another cult of the disruptor, but he also kept adding things to his backstory that would, like, saying he was a lord or whatever from the Dragon Continent, which wasn't in his backstory beforehand, so forth, so on, and he was just like, that character who makes things up to fit the situation so that they know everything or they've experienced everything or they can have a solution. Pretty much they're using their backstory to metagame. Yeah, like Glenn said, just say no.
Those are easy no's, but say like your character, your player learns something about the story you've created, and they want to change something to like better fit this because they didn't know of this information prior, and then they talk to you. That's a good like change. That's a positive change to their backstory and a positive retcon because you can make that work. But if someone's just like being like, well, I want to be a noble right now, so I'm a noble. Just be like, stop game. No.
Yeah,
we're gonna rewind 10 seconds. Follow your backstory, and if you want to change your backstory, talk to me in between sessions.
Yes, that is the end-all, be-all when it comes to dealing with situations like that. Like Brim said, stop the game, say no, tell them, talk to you about changing some things, between games. Because that's a big no. You don't just make up shit on the spot. You know what I mean? Don't be that player. And if you're dealing with that player, just say no. It's that glorious rainbow.
Oh.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. I always start my conversations off with Pat in between games with, you can say no, but what if my character did this? And like, I always give them that option because like, it's not like it's my character, but at the same time, it's in his story. So
And
we got to
most of
come
the
to
time,
that
I
decision
say
together.
yes, or I say, hey, this wouldn't really fit in the lore, but we can make it fit to the lore if you're willing to find some common ground. So the DM most of the time will work with you. You don't need to hide it. And as DMs, be willing to work with the player. Don't just say no and not give them an opportunity to maybe flesh out their backstory a little bit more. Maybe an uncle that they had in their backstory that they referenced but didn't really know. Maybe they are an actual noble, and this family just parted ways with the nobility, and there is a connection to nobility. So
But
it's
again, that's in between games.
yeah, it's in
Sorry.
between games, not in the game, not in that current game. You know what I mean? But that's the other thing. That's the easy thing to answer, right? The backstory part is the easy thing to answer. People adding things to their character sheets, though, that's different. That is
Yeah.
that is borderline, if not confirmed, cheating.
No, it's cheating.
Yeah, yeah, it is cheating. And if this happens,
If you do it, you should feel bad and
mm-hmm.
like grow up.
Yeah,
Like,
it's not a game you're gonna win. It's a game you're playing to have fun, not a game you're winning. Not a game you're playing to win.
You're essentially game sharking a multiplayer game, guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's never fun. And those who think it's fun, they have no life.
Yeah. We're gonna be a little hard on that because there's just no reason for it. And if you're a DM and you discover this, you can be nice the first time, right? You can be like, hey, I noticed that you did this. You know, trust is getting a little broken here, so maybe the solution is I need to take a picture of your sheet before and a picture of your sheet after game. Or leave your sheet with me if you're doing an in-person game or something like that. But the thing is if they're consistently doing it or they've done it more than once, no, don't play with that person.
And you might think they've done it, and they're like, no. If you're starting to suspect that they're doing that stuff, just be like, double check yourself before you launch any more accusations.
Mm-hmm.
Just like be careful, like make sure you're not throwing out false accusations. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can do if you do any changes to the campaign from then on, like, guys, I want to look at character sheets. Like, make sure it applies to all characters,
Yes.
everybody.
Do not single the person out unless you know for sure.
Yeah. Just be like, just so I'm sure that I'm not misremembering things, I need to check everybody's character sheets. Or you don't even have to say it like that. You can be like, for story purposes from this point onward, I want to make sure I know everything in everybody's inventory. So if everybody can show me their character sheet, whether that's online or in person, and then just, if you have a phone with the camera, just take pictures. If not, good luck on your note taking.
I mean, yeah, that's the other thing is that if you're not sure, and you're kind of starting to suspect somebody is doing this, take note of what they purchase and what you give them, because they aren't gonna get anything else beyond what they purchase in game and what you give them in game. That's just how D&D works. It has to go through you, the DM, before they even can put it on their character sheet. So if you keep notes of that and then they suddenly pull something out that they did not purchase and they did not buy and a player did not give them, you know that they have added something that's not there, that you know that they are cheating. And at that point, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
What were you... Oh, So they're touching on this. There's a really funny bit done by Studio C where they kind of make fun of D&D nerds. So like yeah, but they essentially this girl comes in and she role plays with them and gets them to give them all of her gets them to give her all of their stuff.
Oh, I've seen this one.
Yeah, and then she like leaves, and I'm like, if I was the DM at the next place where she brought that character sheet, I'd be like, yeah, no, yeah, no.
Yeah,
You
if
don't
suddenly came
have
in with like
all that.
an entire adventuring party's worth of gear, I'd be like, "Where'd you get this?" Oh, another party gave it to me. No, and like, no. So, yeah.
Like at that point, like how? Why wouldn't you just write? At that point, you're just writing whatever you want on your character sheet.
Yeah. Baseline end be all. If it's something light that's not serious and it hasn't happened constantly, like backstory changes, just talk to the player about it. If it's something major or it happens all the time, despite you talking to them or despite you saying, hey, do not do this, don't have them at your table. There is two levels to this. Be understanding and work with them, and maybe they made a mistake. Maybe they just wanted to change up something because they liked the story, like Brim said. But in the end, there is a solid line in the ground at that point.
Also, don't be afraid to be like, all right, I'm gonna say no right now, but we can talk about this after the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just say
Yeah.
no.
When it comes to physical things in your character sheet, though, that's not an accident. That's not a retcon. That's not this story moment is better. I like this. I want to play on this a little bit because it might fit into my backstory. That is not the situation at all in that point. If it's a physical item being added to your character sheet or a proficiency or an ability or a spell that wasn't there before and they haven't taken a long rest, or they've been adding spells, so they have like this massive list like a wizard would, but they're like a cleric. It's just a no. It's just a solid no. Do this again, you're out. But yeah. End of be all is no if it's a serious offense. And so, and I call people putting things on their sheet that wasn't there or was not approved of, was not agreed upon. I call that a solid, hard offense, and I will not put up with it. That's me personally. I have never done it as a player, and I have been a player when somebody has done this, and I have been a DM when somebody has done this, and it is frustrating. It is incredibly frustrating in its least form. And Brim, you've been in a character in a game where this has happened. You've been a player. So we're gonna move on to segment 5, the hard call. What do you do when a player's behavior makes the campaign feel unsustainable, or just unsustainable? Something that just cannot be going forward. Like, have you ever had to ask someone to leave or restructure the group in its entirety? Like, basically, this kind of connects to the group. Wow, I really put these in a bad order.
It's fine. So why don't we just go into the story about our favorite British or Australian?
I don't even know what she would. No, because that was
she
William.
was Australian.
Yeah, William was the British one. But no,
yeah. Well,
I cannot. I cannot handle this player.
This girl, she was from Australia. Like that, we'll just call her the Australian girl so that we have don't use her name. But she's basically she was all right in the beginning. And then she kind of dove into that's what my character would do type stuff. And like I was running a very nautical game, so like lots of sailing ships and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of problems with that campaign, but like she wasn't helping things by like going around and like while we were engaged in sea combat, she was firing the ship's cannons that the party had just bought.
Yeah, and we did so much effort to get like to finite the amount because it was a very detailed campaign where we had to like balance the weight of our ship with food and ammunition and supplies while leaving enough room to be able to gather stuff because we were pirates. And yeah, she was
Yeah.
firing those cannons just into the water. Not even like the enemy was over here, she was firing over here, and it was. And then when we were talking to the bad guys because we had boarded their ship, yeah,
Yeah, she was not a part of the scene whatsoever, which fair, because like the bad guys that were being presented were part of someone else's backstory. But I get that you get bored, but you don't really just do stuff. And now it was for me as a DM, like I'm trying to focus on the scene, and then all of a sudden this character's telling me, "Oh, I'm driving the ship and firing the cannons," and it's like.
mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, she's firing the ships and doing the cannons, and so the one character had to fly over there because they had flying speed and like stop it.
Yeah.
And that
Oh, and that character
that ended up
carried over.
resolving it. That
Yeah.
character ended up resolving, like she left, but at the same time that campaign never like
It just never. Yeah, we
fully
tried to
continued after that.
Brim tried to restructure it at one point, but because of the BBG known as scheduling, it never really got to fruition, which sucks because I love that campaign. I want to play it. We played it in a one shot once before, and it was really fun. But that character then, where I believe Brim did technically have to ask her to leave, was in our little adventuring party where we were kids who grew up together and we had become adults and it was time for us to set out on our dream of becoming adventurers, and she was brought in later, and like in the campaign before, anything I did or anything anyone in a position of leadership, she just immediately targeted. And
Guys, I know it sounds like Pat's a problem player in denial.
I know, right?
I promise you, he's not. And this isn't just because Pat's like one of my good friends. Like
talking about the be objective, you know what I mean?
it really is because people take like the way he acts in character personally, and like.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys watch
like,
Ivan.
I've
viewers
talked to people
you know.
about this. And they'd be like, I just can't, like, his character. And I'm like, all right, so what about his character as being problematic to the campaign? And they're like, I just don't like him. And it's like, okay, that's not really a valid reason for why, like.
More of the story. Don't let Pat playing games.
No, it really is like people just need to stop taking things personally, like when it comes to D&D, like especially if you had a session 0 and your DMS, is there anything you're uncomfortable with? And you say nothing, and then the DM brings in and then the DM does something and you take issue with that. Okay, talk to the DM in between sessions, be like, I'm not comfortable with this. I thought I was. I'm not. That's how it should be. Instead of, but how most people usually react is get angry at the DM and like throw a kind of like a tantrum.
Yeah.
And the same thing applies for players. If a player like, I was like a gangster. In that one game you ran where we were in a magical academy and I was a gangster, and I suggested taking the goblin as a slave.
Oh yeah.
And that one
It
character.
was
She
one
absolutely
character.
lost her mind.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
that
and
could have been talked about out of game. I get where you want to react as as your character, but the problem with that was her character was no better. Her character was a noble who family was not kind to people at all, and she was the same. But the moment something happened that her personally didn't like, she went ballistic. But yeah, so there's some times where you have to ask a player to leave, and yeah, we've had those moments. I had one person who originally was really good. He was really nice. This was in that the D&D version of True Hero. He was the guy who was building a character based around like a Marvel character or something. But he the problem with it was it wasn't what was going on in game. It was what was going on out of game, like in the out of game chats and stuff like that. Because we played mostly online, and he would just keep talking about drugs and talk about drug running and talk about selling drugs and just constantly doing that stuff, and the players were just incredibly uncomfortable. Like it wasn't had anything to do with his character, but
this also was not the only person to do this. So, like, there's one guy who like sets. So we actually have people who like practice witchcraft, and he was kind of like mocking their witchcraft.
Yeah.
By like talking about it, and anyways, yeah. So.
Yeah, it's the simple point that sometimes you're kicking a player out because of out of game things and behavior out of game than it is something in game that they're doing, right? Like you have to in the point of it is sometimes it's more than one person. Sometimes you have to completely cancel the game, take the players who were being good. Like this probably might have been another way to solve. Yeah, another way to solve Brim's little villain campaign was stop the game entirely, take the players who were fitting the story and who were being good, and just saying, hey, I want to restructure this game. Do you want to start? Do you think it's okay? Do you want to start over again? And we just get in maybe some other people who are for sure willing to play this game and the way it is. That is perfectly fine.
No, I was actually raising my hand because do you remember when I was the problem player?
Are we talking about the Grand Quest situation?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I think we talked about this in your in the critical conversation with you, and or was it the interview with you? Right? Was it the interview with you or the critical conversation? Yeah,
it was the interview
where a player had said that they didn't mind if their character died or lived or died in this situation because they were originally supposed to be a guest character. And they had told me directly they didn't care if their character lived or died. They didn't add any stipulations. In their mind, they said, while under mind control, they didn't care if their character died or lived, but not while they were free of it. And so, a conflict happened. Yeah, Brim's character is kind of going a little evil, and it's, he's like consuming souls to power up his former character who has gone evil and has become his patron. And at the same time...
This was my first D&D campaign, everybody.
Yeah. At the same time, another character has been going kind of down a power-hungry, somewhat darker, I wouldn't necessarily say evil, but darker campaign, where he has already consumed a player character when they died once. But this is when they died. And after the conflict, because this player had told everyone they didn't really care because everyone was like, oh, we don't want to kill this character, but this character is going to mess us up if we don't fight real, because they had basically power belt. And so they had said, it's okay if I don't care if my character lives or dies. Again, not telling the whole thing. And so Brim and this other person, I'm going to say it because we've talked about it as well, Yone, tried to devour this character in two different ways, and so they ended up fighting each other over it, trying to get it, while some of the party was trying to stop them from doing it, and it ended up nothing happening because I had to stop the game. Pull the people.
If we ever get an animator, we should animate that, because that is like.
I had to stop the game, go to the sidelines with the person who was upset about the situation, and then talk to them. I was like, hey, you're not okay with this situation. I can tell. Why'd you tell everyone it was okay if your character lived or died? She's like, well, my character's not mind controlled anymore. And then we found out the actual stipulation. So I was like, look, they didn't know that. So in their opinion, they thought you were killing off this character, or you're willing to kill off this character for story progression. And then we ended up bringing them in, bringing the culprits in, and talking it out, and being like, letting the people say what they wanted to say, letting Brim and Yone say what they wanted to say. And then we found a point where it was like, yeah, I'm sorry. Let's do something to kind of rewind this situation. Or let's...
But it actually broke my story progression, because I went...
Mm-hmm.
Like, the only way I was going to be able to play this off was, like, the way I was going to play it off beforehand was like, I didn't know she was mind controlled at the time. Like, I was just trying to stop her. And the way everything
you were trying to hide that you were turning evil.
Yeah. And the way I had committed like murders in like secret and stuff like that, like beforehand. And like so, but the way this ended up getting resolved totally exposed my character for being like completely evil.
Not like we could have rewound it for the characters, but it revealed it to the players, which kind of ruined the situation for this. So we had to take the game and restructure the story. I came up with something that was basically like let's separate from this character. This character is now on the bad guy's side. They've shown their cards. The main bad guy showed up and took them in, and granted them power to work with them, and then became like the party's like revenant of sorts. Always showed up to try to kill them or torment them in some way. But it's the simple fact of like, sometimes you have to do in the moment restructuring because of a situation. There's that it was a major misunderstanding, plus two people having secretive, somewhat darker stories they were going on. And so at the same time, you gotta, as a DM, you gotta play the judge and the jury.
Honestly, you did the best thing possible, because it was a yelling match at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people were unglued. Like, at least Yone wasn't yelling at anybody, but like
Yone doesn't really yell at people.
It was like 3 people yelling at me while I was yelling back at them. So
yeah. So I just had to stop everything. Do the whole like, all right, kids, let's separate different corners. I'll talk to you individually. And then after everyone cooled down, bring them back together and be like, now let's work this out. But yeah, restructuring doesn't necessarily mean that you have to kick somebody from a group. Sometimes it means you have to entirely cancel an entire game to start again, to restructure it in a way that will make it sustainable. And in some ways, you have to restructure the story of both a character's story and your story so that it can continue on. So be open to change.
And I know retconning things ruffles like a storyteller's feathers. Like, they hate doing that. Like, it doesn't make sense now because like, you're here to play yes, you're telling a story, but at the same time, you're here to play a game, and people's feelings and
It's like Risk.
yeah, like it's more important to be like a peacemaker in those situations than to have a consistent game. Like it's better that people compromise and your story makes less sense than as if then your story makes perfect sense and everybody's screaming at each other.
Yeah. And so that's how I would handle it. I mean, we've pretty much explained how, we could have, with this restructuring process, because of a group of players that just didn't fit the game, how we could have, continued playing Brim's villain campaign, and how we've had to kick a player out a time or two because of them causing games in which, thankfully, the one where the former True Hero didn't really do anything to the story. And there has been times where I've had to do that, and it has.
I mean, that event opened the door for Xander, and Xander's my favorite. One of my favorite characters.
Yeah. Like sometimes restructuring is the best thing that you can do. However, it happens. Sometimes it's the best thing you can do because sometimes it creates a better environment or a better character. So don't be afraid to kick someone out if it's causing your game to be unsustainable. If the game is being unstable and it won't continue on if you don't do something. Act. Don't wait. Act. So
like it just all comes down to talking and compromise. You talk about things so you find out what you need to compromise on. If people are unwilling to compromise, then you need to make cuts.
Yeah. Yep. There's plenty of D&D fish in the sea. All right. Let's see here. Segment 6, prevention is power. I think we just talked about this. How can you prevent problematic behavior before it starts? Like, what onboarding tools, tone docs, or session 0 practices have worked best? Me personally, the red card, yellow card system. Meaning, what are some topics that I as the storyteller, do not touch? Nowhere. Don't even go with a 10-foot pole. Yellow cards, there's a line. You can come close. Don't go over it. And then, obviously, I don't need to say it, but green card is go for it. But there are, some documents out there. I know Brim used them once, I think, didn't you? Or was it Mithril who used these documents once?
I used them, was with a game that did contain elements of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
The Prison Break game.
Yep, the Prison Break game. And I mean, I think honestly, me personally, when we ran that game, I looked at the sheet because I'm a storyteller who's like, I'm not afraid of anything. If it's in a story, it's in a story. It's not like we're going out to do it in physical form. It's a story. And so I generally don't have any red or yellow cards. Yeah, I don't think I ever have a red or yellow card. But some people do, and the fact is we found some of those people's red, yellow cards, or, the yes and no's or maybes that they didn't think of until they saw it written down. So finding some of those tools is super, super handy. They're like these answer sheets that have you put a mark if it's green, yellow, or red, and it tells the DM, generally what not to do. And it has a spot to fill in for things that aren't on the list. But it just makes the player think, actually, what kind of elements are they okay with? And if you're a part of a D&D server, or you run a D&D server, add that in as something that's a part of their onboarding to the server, because if you don't want to ask it every game, they can just hand it over to the DM.
I mean, if you still have that document, I think linking it down below would probably be a good
I
idea.
mean, yeah, I mean it's somewhere in our messages, I'm pretty sure. um,
But it can like also being open to like new things, like yes, major things, like anything that makes a movie rated R or anything that makes a movie rated PG. Like,
mhm.
actually, I don't think it could be anything that makes a movie rated PG, but anything that makes a movie rated R probably belongs on that list. Um, but like one character told me they didn't want a lot of religiosity in the game, that they didn't that like that was something that they weren't comfortable with, and so
Mhm.
I was just being like, okay, yeah, we'll move.
It also
We
helps the
won't
DM know
have that.
if you. Yeah, it helps the DM know if you're even a player. If you're a player that will fit this game in the first place.
Yeah,
So,
if
um,
they're bringing up stuff that is key integral parts of the story, you need to
mhm.
have a talk with that player and be like, look, I
Yeah.
appreciate you want to be a part of the game, but I want to do this, and I feel it's important to the story, so maybe you should join a different game, like in the
Yeah.
nicest way possible.
Yeah, you don't need to be like, get the hell out of here, you snowflake. But when it comes down to like tone docs, I've never used these personally, but I have seen some people use it where they give a document outlining the in detail the tone of the story, which I might actually benefit from if I started doing. Um, but yeah, no, use that tool because if unless you're playing a game that's more open ended, it doesn't really have a tone or theme to it. Um, you don't really need this. But if you are running a game that is very heavy themed or tone related, like really dark or really lighthearted or something like that, having at least like a written up detail, like somewhat detailed document about like what it is and stuff like that, like what's the tone, what's the vibe of it, like that helps a lot of clearing up misunderstandings. So I don't necessarily use it. I don't think I've ever run into someone who uses it. I normally just give what the tone and theme is, and then if a player doesn't quite understand, I just talk to them about it. Session zero practices, I've kind of talked about one of mine, but also I've gotten into the habit of having players talk about their backstory a little bit, keeping some things hidden. I tell them keep some things hidden that you want to keep hidden. But if there's some things that when it comes up you want the rest of the party to roleplay, let the party know now, so that they can write it down in a note or something. So when it comes up, they're not like, "Oh, cool," or "Oh, this isn't a moment I should talk in." But they should be. At least now they know by your own words. Hey, roleplay this how your character would roleplay this. Um, that's something
This
that
isn't like,
has worked. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and this isn't like a super big example, but like, um, when I joined in Mithril's fight, when she was fighting her husband,
Mm-hmm.
her, like I jumped in, but the reason I immediately bounced is because I didn't want to interfere, and I didn't know uh if that was something she wanted or not. So like I like
Mm-hmm.
came in, fought the extra enemy, and then pieced out and was like, I'm gonna let you guys fight. I would have been honestly, I would have been fine with it joining in the fight, but I didn't know if that's what Mithril would have wanted.
Yeah, and some situations happen on the fly. Um, and remember, because you are kind of in a game that can freely pause, you know what I mean? You can be like, hey, how far do you want me to play in this? Do you want me to go full bore into RP with this, or do you want me to just kind of insert a little bit and then leave, or just not touch on it? that is some of the best practices you can do, is communicate with your fellow players and communicate with your DM. That is probably the best problematic prevention tool ever, is to be communicative with your group. Just talk.
You know, a game where all you do is talk, the most important thing to do is talk.
It's talk. So there's don't be afraid to make hard and listen. Yeah, if someone's talking and you're not listening, then there's no that talking doesn't matter. But there's like a couple of key points that, you know, has resurfaced several times. Say no. If camera. Talk to each other. Compromise. And remember that it's a game. Like, those are the 4 things that... Oh, and 5 things. Be willing to make the hard choices. Those 5 things will prevent pretty much any... Yeah, be decisive. Those 5 things will be... are probably your best tools to prevent problematic players and problematic situations.
5 rules of DMing, and put them on the
screen. in the SpongeBob rainbow gif. But all right, so I think we've talked about just about everything I found on Reddit that were most commonly asked questions. If you guys have any, if you viewers have any other questions you want to ask, or that don't even need to apply to problematic players, comment down below, and you know, I'm always in the comments. I'll always comment back, and other people of the Storytellers team will also comment to you, and we can talk about those things in the comments, or heck, if it's a big enough point, we might make another video, you know? And if there's another type of video that you want us to go on, like maybe builds, how we feel about lore, how to make a world, how to make your character fit, stuff like that. Like, we both of us have very good practice at trying to do most of those things, so we can make more videos.
We get into world building. We can talk about how my own complexity has worked against me.
Yes, don't overcomplicate things.
But yeah, just maybe even if it's like something you struggle with, like I struggle with RP, we can talk about that because we've had struggles with RP, and we've had people that have struggled with RP, and so like just whatever you want, whatever you feel like, just put it down below. We don't judge, and we'll talk
also,
about it.
Just in case you didn't know that you could do this on YouTube, like and subscribe, and hit that bell. I know that's not talked about enough, but that bell. The bell will tell you when we've uploaded more stuff. Like, we have Grand Quest every week on Thursdays at 6 p.m. MST, right? We're coming close to the end of that, though. We've only got a few episodes left of Season 1, so... And then we're going to take a little break before we start putting out Season 2, so you'll have plenty of time to catch up and finish up Season 1, so watch that content. Then we have Out of the Abyss every Wednesday at 6 p.m. MST. We have True Hero every other week at 4 p.m. MST on Fridays. And we have a lot of other shows coming out, including a Rime of the Frost Maiden story. And something that we're going to do that is a heavy... I would best describe it as an actual play audio drama. But I'm not going to reveal too much about that, because we got a while before that one. It's a lot of work to set it up, but we're hoping you're going to enjoy it. But please, come and watch all of our stuff. We love you, like always. Have a happy day. And I'll see you next time.
Bye.